This video will show the borders for the labels when grouping of data is done using multiple columns. I choose Server Repository script to retrieve the data that I will be using for this demonstration. If you pay attention to the lines for every action I am doing, you will see some inconsistencies between the borders for y-axis and x-axis. This is because of how I implemented them. The grouping on x-axis was done maybe 1 year ago, while the grouping on y-axis was done just 2 weeks ago, or less, using a totally different approach. While drawing the lines for x-axis, I have a vertical line for the first entry, but I don't have the last line for the last entry. I believe this is the same for y-axis. Another thing I noticed was that Power BI implementation is flawless, meaning that I haven't seen overlapping of these dotted lines. In my case, sometimes because of the positions I am drawing them, they overlap, and sometimes you might see a continuous line because 2 dotted lines are overlapping each other for some length. The reason might be because I start from specific positions while Microsoft might calculate to the digit. For example, for y-axis, like I mentioned, my text blocks are the same width and I start the dotted line from the x position of each text block, while Microsoft could employ logic like, I start from this position. The dots are every 3 pixels. My text block is 130 pixels long, hence, my dotted line will most probably finish with a space, hence, I should start with a dot. What I am trying to say is that the appealing of a drawing requires not only talent but a lot of planning ahead and computations. Doing this demonstration, I realized something that I don't like, but might be easy to fix. If we increase the vertical starting point for charts having multiple grouping on x-axis, then if users switch it to a chart for which x-axis becomes y-axis, then xd margin should become yd margin in order for the user to have a seamless experience. For the time being, I am okay with changing those values manually, but this requires 2 operations that can be automated easily. The problem with adding things is that they require careful consideration and testing. The code I have now reached a complexity level which is not suitable for quick addition or removal of features because, like mentioned in the past, was not written by following Microsoft best practices which are in place to avoid just the situations in which I find myself now. For the remaining of the video, you will just see examples of sorting and scrolling of the results set. I was thinking if these operations should have a control which is part of the chart like Power BI has, or it is still keeping them as part of the data grid I am using to display the data. Maybe in the future I will try to add some control that will allow the user to call the data grid event handlers already in place, because the current implementation means that chart needs to be drawn whenever I want to sort, which means 2 operations that can be skipped.